within a couple of years, the shift of humans communicating across freight is going to be dramatically lower. There will be AI that represents all of the stakeholders in the ecosystem, both brokers, carriers, shippers. AI is going to be handling a lot of that communication. You can both get reliability and efficiency and ease of communication. That's the thing that I think is this big unlock for freight.
Hello, mate. That was kind of British, wasn't it? That was pretty bad.
That was not my accent.
So where actually are you
from Sydney. I spent like 4 years in Europe when I was a kid. And I was 5 when I left Australia, and then 4 years here, and then went back to Australia when I was like 13. My whole family is Australian, so it was my dad's work. But spend some time in the Bay, and that probably you get a bit of the bug.
It's easy to get here for sure.
It's Will's first time. He's like,
oh, really?
This place is interesting.
This is the most interesting place I've ever been in my entire life. And I travel a lot.
I want to get what's the 30 seconds?
Yeah. Here it is. So we're walking down the street, and basically I'm just looking at like all these iconic companies and VCs. And I'm like, that company just raised $200 million, or they just deployed their next fund. And that man is just shitting on a building. I'm like, I've never seen anything like this in my life. It is.
Wild, right? And in every direction you look, there's a Waymo, and like I've obviously heard about it. I've also been. I took him twice, and just super smooth.
What'd you think? It's great, right?
It was really smooth. I gotta give it to them for sure.
Yeah, they've done a great job.
And we took some of the guys, Bob from USA Transportation too. He's got a bunch of followers, and he posted a video of it too, and beat my expectations for sure. So
it's good when you start getting bored.
Yeah, very quick. It was very quick actually.
At first, you're like, amazing. And then you're like on your phone. You're like, oh my gosh, this is.
I love it now.
Future's here. Yeah.
Because I'm a big fan of breathing and relaxation exercises. It's very hard to do that in
Wim
Uber.
Hof type stuff?
Yeah, I usually do yoga nidra stuff, and 10 minutes, put it on, and I'm just in the back in the Jaguar, and they got the lounge music, and
it's very peaceful music that they choose.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a vibe.
At least you don't have to tell your driver not to talk. So, yeah, chill.
I know. Well, that's the thing, because I'm polite, but I'm not the friendliest in Ubers. I got my own agenda,
sure,
but I always feel awkward about that. And anything you do to remove awkwardness is a good thing.
That's a new experience.
That's why Uber was great, I think, initially, because the whole payment thing at the end of the taxi just sucked.
It does.
Yeah. Cash, card, don't have to worry about it.
So tell us about Vooma. We want to hear the origin story, all the fun stuff.
All the way back from the beginning.
How long have you guys been around for?
We met in end of July 2022.
That's right, yeah.
Vooma basically officially started at the back end of that year and properly launched at the beginning of 2023. We got introduced through a friend so Mike went to Stanford undergrad, and I did my MBA at Stanford. And there was a guy in my class who Mike had played on the water polo team with, and Mike had quit his job to go and explore ideas in logistics. And I'd also quit my job. So before this, I was the CEO of a bunch of logistics software companies.
A bunch meaning more than 3, 4?
4.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So we bought, I was working with an investment group, and we would buy. So we had 2 TMS platforms. We had a fleet inspection platform. And then led the acquisition of Trucker Tools, which you guys, I'm sure. Yeah. So was very involved in getting the leadership team in place there with Carrie and the rest of it. And they obviously just had a really great transition to DAT. But my passion has always been for building from the ground up. And so had CEOs kind of take over those various businesses, and then got introduced to Mike as we were both kind of looking for co-founders in the space. And it was kind of an interesting one where I was exploring an idea with somebody in self-driving, another technical co-founder. And I spoke to this friend, Alex, and he was like, you should chat to Mike. And by the way, he's also looking at ideas in this space. We had coffee at Cafe Reveille up in Lower Haight. And I just remember chatting to him about this self-driving idea. And it was just clear to me that Mike was a lot sharper than the person. I was like, I think I want to work with you. Yeah. And so then I asked Mike what he was working on, and he was working on some crazy ideas in logistics, and we decided to kind of team up and run with them.
Find shippers fast with ShippersCRM.com. Shippers CRM is a FreightCaviar product and it is the first US shipper database and freight CRM. Stop wasting time searching for shippers. Shipper CRM is the fastest way to find the shippers you should be working with. This purpose-built sales platform offers 4 key features: US shipper database, access 51,000 research shippers, Magic Map, a revolutionary search engine that helps you quickly find your ideal shippers, Magic Contacts, logistics contacts that automatically update themselves, Relationship Manager plus integrations. Seamlessly manage shipper relationships with built-in CRM tools and integrations. Supercharge your sales process with Shipper CRM. Learn more by going to shippercrm.com.
What is one crazy idea and what was the self-driving?
What I was working on most immediately there was actually in the last mile space. And I had been, it's probably not a more elegant way of saying it, I'd been like stalking delivery drivers and like timing, like, okay, how long are they in the, back sorting, searching, how long are they delivering, the routes, how would they look like?
Stalking, researching.
Yeah, I mean, like I tried to pretend it wasn't stalking for a while, yeah. But there were some really interesting ideas there, and sort of like to cut to the chase, it was for robotics that you could have in delivery vans that would help people basically like cut down this sort of sort and search time. So that was one of them. There were probably a few that were like more out there than that, but that was one of the most the more interesting ones.
I'll give so I started talking to Mike and he's like, no, I like work on out there ideas. I was like, well, what is the craziest idea that you've worked on? And he worked on an idea, no joke, to train pigeons to crows to pick up trash. Right. Yeah. Using robotics
did that work? Or what in theory could it work?
Yeah, so crows are really smart. And the idea basically at that point was I'd come from robotics, right? I'd been working on self-driving and robotics, and like robotic sort of dexterous manipulation is a pretty hard problem. We're getting to some pretty interesting results now, obviously.
Good level.
But take us back 3-4 years, and that was a very hard problem. And I was thinking about it as like, well, we have simpler robots that could do the sort of like reward mechanism, basically. So if we have like, a crow comes in, drops off trash, reward it with a snack, a peanut or something like that. I was seeing some results there. It was like, and there are other projects. There's a few that are like doing similar things that have like this great YouTube videos of this stuff. So it was probably one of the more out there ones.
So y'all met and you're like, I want to work with this guy. Like, we got to figure something out.
Yeah. And so we had it was, initially this like idea of, it was like a robotic arm and I like had a lot of experience on the like last mile side. And so it was a way for us to like kind of explore the idea. And we actually like even got it all the way up to like meeting with like UPS's like innovation team. And like even the original like Vooma logo was like we had a call and we were like, shit, we need to like create a deck and this and that. And they were like, hey, we need like an NDA. They were like, we've been looking at you online. We can't like see any like background. And we were like,
but check out these simulations
but these
and I had been what mattered a lot to me was finding like a co-founder who could really like bring the commercial mastermind, the like get us in the conversations, pitch the vision, actually like develop the vision. And I think when we started working together, especially on that idea, which was a lot of like sort of cool like white paper, operational research plus cool robotics. And then sort of rubber met the road when Jesse came in. We were developing it, like actually pitching these and figuring out how would this actually look if we put this into one of these businesses. And we ended up actually killing that idea because it was, there were a lot of challenges. Don't need to go into the details, but it was a really awesome moment for us in our sort of partnership where we realized that we were going to be able to sort of cover the full spectrum of like what you need to be amazing at to like build a great business.
Then we started to kind of build what the beginnings of like what Vooma became. Because this was the back end of 2022. And this was like pre-ChatGPT, like working with the GPT-3 API. And we started exploring a bunch of different concepts there. Originally with this vision of building this like a universal like broker dispatcher for the trucking industry, because we were starting to, and it kind of felt like this moment where if you were playing with those things at that time, you realized that the world was about to change very materially. And I'd been working, like with brokerages, and had just seen that like over the last, like there's a lot of tools, there's visibility tools, there's digital freight matching. But if you're in the industry and you like looked at a broker, you kind of knew that like there was still a ton of stuff that was happening on top of that, even though there were these like kind of big promises of automation. And so that was like, so it was kind of clear that there was this inflection point. Like we started building like voice prototypes, looking at
November 2022.
Yeah, very,
I
very.
guys remember where you were when you tried ChatGPT for the first time?
So I was in like OpenAI sort of early developer access program, and so I remember very, very early days, and had like there was I'll never forget. I was like working up late one night, and it was in my dad's house. I was visiting him, and he has this sort of like spooky-ish attic, and so I'm like kind of hacking, or, working with very, very early versions of the APIs, which had a bit less of the sort of alignment and steering baked in. And I was doing this one experiment with a colleague that I knew who was German. He was like, "Oh, put in this German sort of question about what's the future with AI," and it came back with some like really scary, like aggressive, like gonna take over the world stuff. So I was like, "Oh wow, the world's about to be pretty interesting. This is gonna be a ride."
Yeah. Did it was able to translate at that point, right?
Yeah. It was. Very sophisticated. That was sort of the moment where there was this leap of like early like natural language processing that was frustrating to interact with, to like, wow, it actually really is understanding. So sometimes you get some really interesting stuff out of it, but that was the moment that like I knew that there was going to be something transformational here, and this was going to be a technology that like we kind of needed to be building on top of.
Like this unstructured text paradigm, right? Which I think a lot of companies have always battled with, that challenge of like how information gets entered into their systems. Nobody enters it in consistently, right? And how do you handle all that, right?
Yeah, and voice, right? Like, I mean, it's funny. I was actually like looking back at the way that we like kind of figured out. We had this like big vision, but when you're like two people trying to figure out the right like entry point was a lot of like the early days, and so we would have these like sales decks that would have like every part of this. It was like, we're building this universal agent, and it can like call carriers, it can handle inbound calls, it can respond to quote requests, and can do all this. And then just kind of figuring out like what people were resonating. And then it eventually got to the point where people were like, okay, like, yeah, send a proposal, like we're in. And we were like, okay, shit. I think there's clearly something here. And then it was a lot for us of like figuring out, okay, like we can't build it all today. Like what's the right entry point, and how do we like start with problems where we can build stuff that has like production scale reliability. We ended up starting with like, we can sort of think about it as like skills that we would build towards with like order entry and taking all of the
scales or skittles. Sorry,
skills. Like skills of like building this kind of like digital employee that like has skills
foundational components, and then you build on top of it.
And build. And so we started with like essentially like document ingestion. I mean, you guys know the problem well, but like, if you're a broker or a carrier, just dealing in a ton of email spreadsheets, screenshots, whatever else. And so the first product that we released was this like automated entry product. And then we've expanded out a lot from there.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Genlogs. Genlogs is a nationwide sensor network that has collected nearly 2 billion real-time images on trucks. You might say it's crazy. Your competitor says it's game changer. See why all the top brokerages now use Genlogs to acquire new customers, source better carriers, and conduct deeper compliance. Book a demo today. It's like slinging freight on God mode.
So what was the aha moment for you all from a product development perspective where you go, okay, this thing has legs. People are responding in a way that gives us the feeling that we're going to be able to add a lot more customers?
Yeah, there was probably like two moments like where, I mean, when you're like early days, there's a lot of like selling before you kind of build sort of stuff.
Selling the dream.
Yeah. And I think the first aha was like when we actually just got a bunch of signed contracts off some very, kind of Figma mock-up-y and like proof that the stuff was gonna work. And so it was very like, it was clear to us like, oh wow, this is like a really painful problem. And if we build a solution here, like people are willing to pay for it and pay good money for it. And so then we like went heads down and build it. And, it took a while to like.
Which product was that?
That was the automated order entry. And actually the first customer that we took live was the Molo team, who you know well.
Yeah. Very, very near and dear to us. Yeah.
They don't now. Our early customers don't always know that they were the first. But now we're on TV saying.
Now they know.
Yeah, and then it's kind of like you're very like thankful to your like early partners, because there's a little bit of pain that they put up with, and it was a lot of like iteration and feedback. But then, after like a couple months of like revving it, we really started to just kind of see like usage skyrocket and things really take off, and the just bigger opportunity like reinforce itself as well. So then expanded the product from there.
That's awesome.
Wow, it's wouldn't guess Molo. That's a pretty
Yeah.
cool thing.
That's really cool. I mean, it's great to be able to have a partner that has enough load, volume, and density to be able to try a lot of things. And like,
Yeah.
it is truly trial and error.
Yeah.
And also, they have to be flexible enough to know that it's not perfect.
Yeah.
That's just part of
Yeah.
building a biz. Like, you need good partners early.
And that really is because, like, you know, early days, we could sort of like show it working, right? But we could show it working on the 10 examples that you can demo in a session. But then rubber meets the road when you see the full variety of, and you know, Freight is that's where the sort of the rubber actually does meet the road, is in like the different formats, the handwriting, the like all that stuff. So
You get the PDF
and they were
of, like, 10
fantastic.
stops and all the different it's, like,
In the
so many
spreadsheet
things.
with like different, you know, up on the top of the spreadsheet is the, you know, the stops are separated differently than they are on the bottom of the spreadsheet. And, you know, that was the kind of thing that had just sort of like stymied every effort to automate that before. And sort of like being able to show that AI could actually understand the nuances and the tribal knowledge, like that was sort of the moment that we saw, yeah, this is going to be cool.
So a non-Vooma tech question, I want to go to what you all develop next and kind of what the product is today, but you guys are in the epicenter of like incredible cutting edge tech in San Francisco. What are some of the things that you all see just being built that keeps you sharp to go, man, there's so much more we can build? Because we're walking up and down the streets just seeing the coolest companies building the most progressive stuff all day, every day.
I mean, the cool thing about being, I mean, we've got an office full of software engineers, right? So and there's a lot of energy around like using AI for developing software. So that's probably the category that I keep a really, you know, I try to stay very on the ball with. Everything from like, you know, your co-pilots, which are adding, you know, finishing the line of code that you're writing, all the way to like big tasks that you can hand off to AI agents and then, you know, check in, review their code. Those are some of the really interesting ones to me.
Can you articulate like a little bit how that's changed over the last, probably it's been like really picked up in the last 6 months, right?
The agentic stuff has picked up significantly in the last probably year, I would say. I think, I mean, like the software engineers are based in their IDE, right? Their development environment. It's basically like a code editor. And the first version of AI tools for software engineering were basically like suggesting how to complete that line. And so there's this big sort of quantum leap from like, I'm coding and it's just suggesting things and I'm like, you know, accepting it's saving me keystrokes, to being able to say like, I have a task to do and it's navigating the sort of the full repo, the full code base. And you know, a lot of software engineers will sort of pause at that moment and say like, do I actually trust it, right? Do I need to have seen all of those lines myself? And so that's like the big difference here with agentic AI, is that you actually like in natural language express like what the task is that you were going to do. And I think people are still figuring out the contours of like, do I let sort of a product person or someone who's just talked to a customer say, hey, we need this in the product, and then does that go straight to AI and do you trust it? Like, we're not at that point at the moment. We think that there's still a sort of important moment important part of that development life cycle where humans look at it and make decisions and sort of incorporate the vision. But increasingly, I think like, you know, you can imagine small things like, you know, bug fixes. You can imagine small things like, hey, we need to support this extra field, but we don't have it. And there's a lot of sort of like pattern in your code base to follow. And that's where it's really working quite well.
And there's plenty of billboards around here for coding agents. Or for example, they will, once you push code, they will check the code for you and tell you, hey, there's a bug here, right? Which is
code review.
Pretty incredible.
I am not technical at all, but sitting next to this cat, watching him build things and use all the other tools to make it more efficient, it's just mind blowing to me, because I can imagine how many other people you would need to execute that motion. Just being
I mean, the way I sort of think, like, you could apply this to like coding, but it really is like almost like every function where the first versions of AI tools were the sort of like Copilot style tools where they would like help you. It would kind of autocomplete. So like autocomplete code, maybe they would like write a email or something for you, or they would work alongside you, but the human was very much in control. And now we're sort of starting to get to the point where you've got like agents that can do specific tasks very well. And even within that, there's like different levels of like, is the agent actually like even planning what to do, like what the work is, or are you sort of like generally guiding the agent on like what the work is to be done, and it's sort of going through and following the steps that you've laid out for it? And that's kind of the like transition that we're like roughly in right now, is like there's this like, you know, we're moving towards this world where you can have AI agents that can take on like increasingly ambiguous tasks and perform them. And I think eventually like it will start to evolve into, systems of these agents coordinating like pretty complex workflows.
I found it to be a super similar problem to, in the very broad general sense of like how self-driving vehicles work. They create some longer term plan, like from here to the other side of the city, okay, take these streets. But then that plan is kind of passed down to another system, which is like, okay, let me make sure I get there by avoiding the obstacles.
Yeah.
And I found myself asking this AI to like help me make the plan.
Yeah.
And then off the plan, go in and navigate, the obstacles. And
I'm glad that you used that analogy. That's like one of my favorite analogies, because there really are, and the self-driving ecosystem has like developed a lot of really good ways of thinking about like this, the sort of like responsibility handoff, right? Like there's humans are involved. Humans, in the early days or sort of like the level 3 autonomy days, like the humans there, right? And that's sort of more similar to the co-pilot models here. And then you go full autonomy and you're sitting in the back and it's driving you, and you actually want to know that like it's making good plans, and that is being passed off to systems that are aware of like what's going on, what are conditions where I actually do need to get a human back in the loop and things like that. And that sort of responsible handoff is a lot of what we think about.
As you guys have continued to develop and flesh out the product, what came next after some of the automation stuff that you built in the beginning?
Yeah, so we started with the load building. The like pain point that we were really solving there is like you've just got a bunch of like operators that are spending time like plugging data into systems, and it's slow and it causes errors, but a lot of that infrastructure made us like extremely good at kind of understanding like email context and documents. And so then we stepped like up in the workflow and moved into like quoting. So like email quoting before you've actually won the load. And I mean, you guys know this in freight, but if you're like a broker and you've got a lot of like SMB customers, you might be like, 50, 100 quotes going out every day. And like, you got to check 3 or 4 different sources to kind of figure out what market is. And
it's so manual.
And you might only win 5 or 10% of those, right? But you got to be out there bidding, and you want to be consistent. So you got to figure out like, what did I quote them like 2 weeks ago? And if you're like a sales leader trying to like run a team where your pipeline is like, well, how many opportunities do we see? How many did we respond to? How fast? What prices? If you're not winning, is it because your prices are too low versus market? Are you bidding too slow? It's basically impossible to answer those questions.
It's actually impossible.
Yeah. Well,
You've been there.
until now. Yeah.
Mind-boggling.
Yeah. It is. It's really, I mean, it's kind of like, like we obviously have a sales org, and like the CRM is the lifeblood of it. Like, what are the opportunities? How are they moving through the pipeline? And you're trying to, obviously, if you're like trying to land a big account, you kind of run that out of Salesforce. But actually, so much of the revenue in brokerage is a lot of this like spot transactional stuff. And there's just no way to.
Jesse has freight. I'm quoting back and forth.
Yeah.
But like, there's so many things that happen in between that convert to either winning loads or saying none of that.
Right.
It's so gray. Like,
Totally.
There's so much gray area.
We then step to like solve 2 problems. One is like illuminating the revenue that is sitting in people's inbox to give executives an understanding of like, where are they seeing opportunities? How fast is their team responding? On what lanes? Where could we win a bunch more freight if we have better relationships on the carrier side? And so that ends up being really powerful, because it's just like a management tool that actually gives you insight. And then for the reps themselves who would like ripping through these things, it just simplifies their workflow and gets this stuff out much faster. And now that product is even like, we have a lot of folks that are now transitioning it to like full automation, right?
Scary.
Yeah. Or like save as much time so that they can like focus on the stuff that they want to. Because I mean, people talk about relationships and they are like super critical in freight, but I always like kind of like joke around, like sometimes the relationship is like people saying like $2,000, and I'm like, well, that's not the relationship. Like I think you can probably like accelerate that. And so that's what we do there. And now we've like expanded it out, and we're building like a complete orchestration platform from quote all the way to cash, where we have a platform that allows logistics companies to build AI workers that can communicate over email, text message, voice, to be able to like handle loads. So we quote, we build, we schedule, we cover it over voice, email, track the load, etc. And it's been really powerful kind of seeing that like initial vision kind of starting to come to life.
That's cool. What's the reaction been from certain customers that are now able to manage more freight? Like they've been doing it long enough that they now see the unlock. And so I'm assuming they're probably going to want more of the features that you all release. Like what type of stories are you seeing or hearing from customers about this change in their biz?
It's been really cool because like we started with a couple of use cases, and now many of our customers are like buying the complete platform where it's really like, how do we like actually transform the business through AI? And like the biggest unlock for folks is that, you guys know this, like when you're on the floor in freight, so much of some of your day is this like complex judgment and like relationship building, but a lot of it is just like karate chopping through the like endless tasks that need to happen. And so the big unlock is this sense of like relief and like freedom for those like people to be able to focus on the stuff that is like really important, but is in the like non-urgent bucket. So like when we like roll out our voice product, so this handle, you post loads on a truck stop, DAT and others, you get a flurry of calls, and that's like, what folks are spending like potentially like 40% of their day on. And now instead, like they're getting served up, like, either fully automating the booking or just getting like served up these like high quality leads that they can close. And that just frees up their schedule now, because now they're like thinking about all of their relationship carriers that they want to be cultivating and like figuring out what freight they want to move and trying to like build out that network and not focus on the stuff that they don't want to be. And so we just kind of see that pattern playing out really across the board. Like, when folks implement the quoting tool, one of the challenges is like, there is a lot of employee turnover in this industry naturally, right? So there's a lot of tribal knowledge required to like execute freight well. But a lot of that gets lost and like recycled over. And so what we're seeing is that folks are getting a lot more consistency and are starting to like build that knowledge in. So they're creating like more resilient businesses.
Is that resulting in lower churn or employee turnover? Sorry.
Yeah, either like lower employee like turnover in some situations, or just like more stability as a business, because somebody can go on holidays for 2 weeks and the whole thing doesn't crumble, right? Because somebody can jump in and like take over the wheel, and like, the system kind of knows how to drive already.
So I have a question about enabling SMB or lower mid-market orgs, or maybe cradle to grave style reps to accelerate their biz. That to me seems like a massive unlock, because you're a one-person shop to an extent.
Yeah.
Shooting from the hip, doing everything you can to win more freight. How's a platform like Vooma take that rep, or an org that is a cradle to grave style, or how does it take them to the next level? Because I guess the lead into that is, I think it enables SMB and mid-market orgs to maybe compete with the bigger companies.
Yeah. I mean,
we're even sometimes hearing folks who are like thinking about like, hey, should we be structuring some of our team like more like a cradle to grave operation? If they can sort of sit there and dispatch to different functions that help them sort of have a presence. I think it's early days to know if that's going to be a transition or not. But
I think it's an interesting question. Like, there's this like democratization of incredible technology now that is available to brokers of all sizes. And we work with a lot of the, top 10, top 5 as well, but we also work with a lot of the like SMBs. And it is interesting with like cradle to grave specifically, where, the sort of like industry says that model doesn't scale. Obviously there's examples of folks like TQL and others that have done it, but like it is a little bit harder. But if you like, there are advantages to it where you just got like a single individual that like is like one throat to choke, like full accountability, like full like awareness of the entire load life cycle. And if you can give them like tools at their fingertips to allow them, like, does it actually enable this like return to that model?
Do you think it will?
I think that there's a good chance that it will. And I still think there's going to be a place for, extremely high volume accounts where like it kind of needs to be. But like in a lot of ways, it's a better offering for the shipper. And I always sort of think about this as like when you build for this industry, like starting with like who's the ultimate customer here, and how do you like build things that support the best value proposition for that. And so I think there is, but like maybe like one good way to like bring this to life is like, if say you're a sales rep on the floor and you're quoting a bunch of stuff. So we're going to get a bunch of...
so we're in Outlook right now?
Yeah, so we're in Vooma is in front, Gmail, really whatever like email platform that folks use. And so we've just got a bunch of quote requests.
Today's episode is also sponsored by Rapido. Rapido connects logistics and supply chain organizations in North America with the best nearshore talent, scale efficiently, operate on par with US-based teams, and deliver superior customer service. Rapido works with businesses from all sides of the logistics industry, including 3PLs, carriers, and logistics software companies. Rapido builds out teams to roles across customer and carrier sales and support, back office administration, and technology services. The team at Rapido knows logistics and people. It's what sets them apart. Rapido is driven by an inside knowledge of how to recruit, hire, and train within the logistics industry, and a passion to build better solutions for success. Learn more about the Rapido solution and begin building your team away from home at gorapido.com.
So just real quick, so when you go and want to try to use Vooma, you go in and you download some files, but it's not like a web app. Per se.
It has both.
We have a web app, but most of it is actually just you go to the Outlook add-in store and you add the Outlook add-in.
Yeah, I like guiding philosophy is we have a web application, but we want to like meet people where they're at in their workflows as much as possible. Helps a lot with adoption and just kind of keep things like streamlined. And so, a very simple example here, like I'm quoting a bunch of this stuff every day. Here I've got a load from like Houston to Texas, for example. And you can see here, I've got Vooma up on the right as a side extension, and the AI has already identified that we've just received a quote request that's come in. And so I can just go and hit create quote here. We could have this actually like automatically bid, but say I want to come in and look, okay, it's extracted out all the data here, and it's telling me that I should like get this out at 440. So I'm like integrated into DAT. I'm integrated into green screens, for example.
And those are pricing engines you can connect to your Vooma account.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
or bring your own if if you have a pricing model that you have been developing internally, you can see it right there.
So a lot of our big guys will be on their own, but we're integrated with Tabby, BRL, Bitfreighter, all the others as well. But then like say it's like, I don't know, it's like 3 p.m. on Friday and you don't trust DAT because...
Sure don't. No,
no, well, you just like, it's like historical data, right? Yeah. And, the market's moving, or maybe it's like DOT Blitz Week, or maybe there was argument. Like there's a lot of scenarios where you actually need to. And so like traditionally what that would mean is like, all right, I'm going to go call the carrier team and be like, what are you seeing on the ground right now? Or maybe you'd go and like, post it and then take a bunch of calls because you need like certainty. And that's actually how a lot of small brokerages still operate today because they don't have these like proprietary pricing models that they have conviction in, and it's really painful and slow. So now what you're able to do, like with Vooma, for example, is actually come in and say, all right, I'm going to post this load onto DAT and say like my max price for this is, I want something between 700, and I can just come in and post this to DAT, and now that load has just been posted on DAT. And so me as a broker, like this is now posted. Now like carriers can start calling in on this right now. So I can like actually go and test the market. So let me go ahead and give this a call.
Vooma Logistics, Jesse speaking. Can I get your MC number?
Yeah, it's 211084.
Let me check.
Yeah, you sound like you've got an Australian accent. What's the deal?
Logistics, right? Do you see a reference number? Yeah, mate, originally from down under, but been in Chicago a while. Let's get back to business though. Do you see a reference number?
Yeah, it's 27750.
Okay, let me look that up. Got it down. So we've got a flatbed load from Houston to Austin. Pickup is tomorrow anytime after 4:30 a.m. Delivery's on Monday after 7 p.m. We're firm at $700. That work for you?
No, I'm gonna need to be at least 1,000 on that.
Let me see what we can do. Give me a second.
Okay.
All right, we can come up to 725.
Nah, that's not gonna work for us. Can you, log my bid at 800 and let me know if that works.
All right, give me a second. We can do 750. That's our next bet.
Nah, it's not gonna work, man. Thanks, appreciate it though. So these like carrier bids will come in and you can actually start to like see these come in, for example. So you could also we integrate with different tools and we build our own like lists of suggested carriers, for example. So you could, fire off an email, for example, or like go ahead and like call a carrier and collect these bids. And so it allows you to like very quickly come in. And so if I'm getting like a call here, for example. Hello.
Hey, this is Jesse from Vooma Logistics. I've got a load from Houston to Austin, picking up tomorrow. You interested?
Yeah, what are the details?
It's steel coils, about 25,230 pounds. Picks up tomorrow in Houston between 11:30 p.m. and midnight. Delivers in Austin on the 28th. Anytime up to 2 p.m. You need a flatbed. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd be at like 950 for that.
Got it. You're saying 150?
No, 950.
All right, noting you down for 950. I'll touch base once we get the green light from the shipper. Thanks for that.
All right, man. Thanks.
Can we just take a moment to pause here and just reflect on the fact that like this is how different of a technology this is compared to anything that existed prior to this. Like the fluency and just the interpretation is it's just crazy still to this day. I've been surrounded by this stuff for a while, but like it's
crazy to like think that you're like talking to a computer.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's like so fluid.
The most natural way possible.
That's crazy. So you were talking about being able to field options, post, kind of feel out where the market's at. What are the other items that reps are typically using the system for, either from a capacity perspective or from a quoting perspective?
Yeah. So once you've like, you've quoted, right? You can send these bids out, boom, fire that off. Now that's gone out to the customer, for example. And then maybe you get like sent a bunch of loads, right? So it can be like wild formats, right? Like you see shit like, pardon my French.
I haven't seen one of these in a while.
I know. This stuff like is still out there where they're like, you get an order like this. This is going to take something like an hour to go and like build.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Now you can just kind of hit this button and it will go and like start to build out all of these orders. So it's detected there's a bunch of those, but you can see here that it's, it's just pulling out everything like store and like matching it with your records as, et cetera. And then that gets built in the TMS automatically. And so you could come in here and you can just like fire this off and this will get built into the TMS. So it could be like this one here, right? Where boom, built this order and then you just fire it up and you got a load built in the TMS. And then from here, this is where you start like moving through the workflow. You can start scheduling it as well. So this will fire off an AI that will go and like navigate the browser, go and book the appointment. We can come in here and we could, actually like get this scheduled. So this is going to send.
Can we not blow past that part about navigating the browser?
Yeah.
Because that I think is like very important to highlight. What is that actually? It's for the audience. So what does that mean?
This in logistics, like one of the challenges is that you've got 200,000 shippers and they got a bunch of facilities. And if you're trying to like book appointments, they've all got their own portals or like old systems, and none of these systems have APIs, right? And so it was very hard. Like you think like, oh, well, there's APIs, let's just like integrate. That doesn't work for a lot of, you think about how many like nodes there are, like that's just, it's not really possible and all these systems are not changing.
Right.
And so if you're a broker and you care about your efficiency, you need to figure out ways to like deal with the reality that you have. And now there is systems, like we have AI that has the ability to go and like look at this web page like a human does and decide like based on my intent where to click and how to navigate it. And we had RPA before, but RPA is very brittle, right? It's very rules-based. These things change. It
breaks super easily as soon as somebody updates
somebody
their
does
website.
anything or you're in a slightly different flow, like you actually need something that is like intuiting its way through it. And so now we have AI that can do this and it just unlocks a ton of these use cases, scheduling being one of them that is super powerful. Or same with like, email scheduling. So I click here, that's gonna like fire off a email scheduling agent here and you can actually like come in and, see this agent is going to start then, like requesting an appointment time from the shipper and the shipper will start responding and it can interact with me over Teams. And so this is this like, agents that can like take pretty nebulous instructions and kind of figure out how to navigate their way through it end to end. That is this like huge capability unlock.
What do you think is hardest to keep pushing forward from a tech perspective with some of the complexities and nuance of how freight moves? Like there's tribal knowledge, there's different shippers and receivers changing how they accept appointments. Like there's just so much nuance to it. How do you keep the tech pushing forward?
Yeah, totally. And I think the piece of it that we've really designed for is this like the work could happen anywhere concept, right? Like the sort of channel, you can't really like die on the hill of email or a voice or something like that, right? Like the work might start in an email, and then it might be voice conversations, then it might be, you know, G chats or text messages or web portals, whatever it is. So I think that's one of the hardest things about like fielding a really useful AI agent for Freight, is just like embracing that and building a system that can like gracefully move between them and thinks about like automation as like getting tasks done, not as like, you know, having a phone call, or as, you know, it's a bigger problem than that. And I think that's probably the meat of the challenge.
Does this work with GChat too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just like type for you in GChat, basically.
There's some nuance obviously around like how the conversations start. There's differences between if it's like an outbound or an inbound conversation, and but yeah.
Okay. Let's talk early days hard stuff. Typically there's an inflection point and stuff is not so breezy. Now you guys are great momentum, have raised, have continued to add great new logos, but what were some times where you're like, dude, this kind of sucks. Like, this is like really hard.
We just released a case study with one of our customers recently, big users of now multiple products. And I was going back to like one of the original emails with them where we went live, like, or we did some like initial like tests with a single user on the platform, and they like ran a bunch of loads through. This was like super early. And the email kind of came back and was like, here are like 5 different issues. Honestly, I don't think this is going to work, and I'm not going to like expand it out across my team. And, you know, like, you're like, shit.
They were great emails.
And then you look like now, like they're like one of the biggest users, and the impact has just been like super transformative on their business. And I think that that's like the heart, you know, like early days, like not everything works 100% of the time. And you've got to like,
so much of the challenge is like actually understanding the nuance of what needs to be done. So there actually is that phase of like, you know, the system needs to know it in the same way that a person would like have a rough first day if they've just been like drinking from the fire hose. Like the system needs to be able to like actually turn that feedback around.
Unfortunately, you have to get into a car accident to know how to avoid it.
yeah.
You know, some stuff has to happen.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be pretty.
But this is like one of the major like challenges and opportunities, and how we're building the platform now is like AI is very intelligent. I would actually say that like AI does not need to get more intelligent to be super transformative for the economy and for logistics. A lot of the challenges today are much more about how do you get the right like data available and the right context available to the AI to be able to do the task. Because the thing that you get as a human by doing it a bunch is just a lot of this stuff kind of absorbs in your head. And so, you know, you could have a PhD today and just sit them in a seat and say, hey, go move freight. They're probably going to screw a bunch of stuff up, right? Like, you know what I mean? Exactly. Like, it's not like an IQ problem. And so a lot of the way that we like are designing the systems now and building towards is how do you actually have AI that learns and understands all of the nuance that goes into moving freight? What are all of these like minor specific details? Because that's actually been the hard thing. People think about like, you know, reading documents, or even like, you know, it's really not about like, you can get pretty close to 100% accuracy, but that doesn't actually move the needle on the job to be done, right? Like totally. It's how do you actually bring in a lot of that context and other data to be able to like reason through it. And so that's a lot of like what we're building now, and like what we think the future is.
What's the ways brokerages use Vooma across the various customers that you guys have? Does it vary significantly? Do they use it for different pieces, or is it just they all kind of consistently use the same components of the offering?
It's a little bit of a mix, because every business runs a bit differently, right? Like if you're a super like contract heavy enterprise brokerage primarily on EDI, like your problems are going to be probably much more around like, okay, how do I schedule all of this stuff, and how do I make sure I'm getting it like covered? You might not have a lot of manual load builds. You could be like an SMB brokerage that's super spot heavy that like really wants to grow in that space. And so what you're thinking about is how do I like decrease my cost to serve in that segment, but still be able to go after the margin. And so I want tools to make my cradle to grave reps way more productive. Every customer has a little bit of a different like spike in terms of like what the most painful thing is. And so usually we'll kind of figure that out and start there. But then the cool thing that kind of starts to happen is that we had an account recently, for example, they signed up on quoting and load building, and they were like, no, we don't want to do any like inbound voice. We don't think that's for us. 6 weeks later, we want inbound voice, and then we took them, like, you know what I mean? And so you start to like realize the power of this stuff, and so the journey like changes as you actually start working.
So the pricing seems to be like the best or most common anchor that gets a lot of these brokerages using Vooma, and then once they're landed, they kind of naturally expand.
Historically, that's been true. Increasingly now, it's a lot of like voice as well for like inbound procurement.
Okay.
Because a lot of like what we think about from a product perspective is how do we drive the like most transformative impact that we can for our customers. And so a lot of that is like figuring out like, well, where is the most headspace going in that has opportunities to like take off a lot of the like drudgery. And a lot of that is around like scheduling. A lot of it is around like booking loads. And so we see a ton of demand there as well.
I'm assuming you guys probably get this question from your customers or prospective customers. They're maybe evaluating a few solutions that are AI enabled. How do you convince them that Vooma is going to do something for them that they're otherwise not going to get somewhere else?
A lot of it is built on trust and credibility that you build up over time. I mean, this is like a big industry, but like people talk as well. And so, I think we've done a good job of building strong relationships of like delivering for our customers. And so I think that's like a big piece of it. But then a lot of it is like what we're just seeing in the market is people looking to partner with somebody that is going to be able to help them with a transformation over the long term. That's like the hard part. And so that's, I think, a lot of like what we're really good at, right, is like showing up for our customers and showing them that there is like a roadmap that we can help them move through that is like quite unique and differentiated, where we're going to be able to not just help them with like one piece, but actually start to like build this kind of like full orchestration from quote all the way to cash. And that's exciting to people.
Are you guys helping with invoicing now? When you say quote to cash, is that?
That's like, we're like starting there. Like initially with a lot of the like document collection piece. But in general, like our focus has been, we've like moved down the workflow. So like quote to build, to schedule, to cover, now starting to do more tracking and then like collection and starting to get into that space.
Oh yeah. Nice. Well, when you think about organizations that are more tech enabled or open, they're like, we need to see what's out there. We have to try. And organizations that are just tech averse, right? What are some things that you would say to laggards that would help them understand that this is not an if, it's a when? If you miss the window, be in a world of hurt. At least that's how I look at it. Like you have to find ways to help your team be more efficient, even if you're a little wary of how tech works.
There's two ways of sort of like maybe breaking down that group. There's the like laggards and maybe the skeptics, right? And I think for like both of those, the answer is kind of the same. It's like you can try something, right? You don't need to necessarily sign up for like we're changing everything in our IT department to be based on this new platform. Like one of the things that I think people that helps to sort of like chart the roadmap is just like choose the part of the workflow where there's the most pain right now, and then like go try to see if AI can move the needle there. Because I think that's often what does end up happening. We'll have a conversation with someone. They're like, look, like I heard you do this, and like that's really something that's really on fire in our business. And then they'll start with that, and they'll realize like, oh shit, like the problem is kind of gone now, right? And then they start to develop a playbook for how they like incorporate AI into their workflows and their processes. So and that's like laggard. Maybe they just haven't had the time or the expertise, or they're fighting other fires at the moment. There's usually like something that you can try. Something fairly low lift, maybe without too much like integration burden or something like that. And then the skeptics on the other side, same thing. Like you actually just want to see it in action, understand sort of what the ROI can actually look like if you start to do like a small investment there and test the waters and see where it goes.
We're at this like moment in history where I think there is like technology that is going to really transform how everything works, including logistics. And
already is.
It is. I think especially in an industry like logistics where there's a lot of things that matter, but like it matters a lot what your cost structure actually looks like, because the relationships and the service count, but it needs to be at a reasonable price. And really your ability to compete there is a function of how much it costs you to like move the load, you know? And so there's a flywheel to be had there. If like you can figure out how to reduce your cost per load, provide really great service and deliver that at scale, you can spin that flywheel really aggressively and grow really fast and take share. And I think that that's like the folks that are doing this the best are doing it. I think that the thing is like, if you don't do that, it's going to get really painful. Obviously it sounds biased because we like, we pervade AI solutions, but it's what I actually like say to our team. It's how we operate our own business with this sense that like, if we are not doing this, somebody else is. And like, we need to we think about this on the coding side, the way we do like sales, the way we support our customers. Like, how do we do this stuff at scale so that we can be the best business that we can be? Because if we don't, somebody else is, and like, you will fall behind. And so it's interesting in logistics because I think the thing that actually separates the folks that are like able to harness this well versus not is, what is my like capability in actually like deploying systems.
Totally.
And I'm not like, some companies realize that this is really critical, like a really critical capability. Others sort of see it as a little bit of an afterthought. And I think it's actually really important to like get really good at this muscle of being able to like implement and realize the return that you expect around technology. And that's often what kind of separates the very best of our customers versus ones that struggle a little bit, is that they haven't really like developed that muscle. And we are now thinking a lot about that, to like, how do we actually like be that resource as well for our customers so that we can like help them through that.
I'm sure you probably have gotten into some organizations that from an external view, you're like, man, they're super complex, really sophisticated. Sure they are. And then you get in there, you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lift necessary for you to execute this. And at that point, it's executive leadership, it's the team that actually implements the tech. And that's going to make or break the ability for the tool to be effective.
Yeah.
Because if you have a better team to execute it, you're probably going to get a better result versus someone that's like, it's not a priority, or, they don't put that much of emphasis on the right people making sure it works.
Yeah.
We talked about this before we started recording. How would you define what AI is? And there's varying definitions of what that exactly is. But given this whole phenomenon that we're all living through right now, how do you, both of you guys, look at, how do you define, if a customer comes and asks you, like, what is AI? What would be the best way to describe that?
I think like the definition for AI and AI agent are like related, but somewhat different. I think AI is like broadly the term that's being used right now for like technologies that heavily use large language models and can like both understand and produce natural language in a way that's like pretty, close to human. I think the AI agent definition actually relates more to like technologies using AI to like do work, to do like useful work in businesses. And I think that's sort of like the agentic piece of it, is that like it's able to do work interacting with, but not necessarily like fully every moment supervised by a human. It can actually do some tasks like aside from human and like potentially long running tasks as well, right? Like some of the SOPs that our agents run will be like over the course of days, because it's like how long somebody takes to reply to an email. That would be sort of like an agentic workflow where like somebody's fully offloaded, like, okay, this scheduling task is now being done by my agent, instead of sort of a co-pilot that's assisting me while I'm writing the email.
Is it fair to say that it's software that can, in very plain terms, just perform day-to-day tasks that, software in the past just was not able to perform due to the messiness of the data?
Messy and unstructured. Unstructured is the way that we think about it, because it's like the information is there. Sometimes it's messy in the sense that it's also confusing, but like the main piece of it is that it's like it's not in JSON, right? It's like it's in some human format that a human would otherwise be able to like read and write.
And now the software is able to just handle that, whereas previously it just was not able to.
You can get caught up in trying to define these things, because even before language models, we called AI, and I think it is AI, like, a recommendation algorithm on Amazon that tells you like, hey, you should also like check out this product. That is a form of what we used to call AI, but it has a very specific objective, which is like, is this a hot dog or is it not a hot dog? But now I think like it's large language models are systems that can like understand and produce natural language, and that ends up being like really valuable in a bunch of use cases because that's how humans have performed stuff. You know, what you're even discussing is probably what folks are going to start calling like AGI. And at some level, like I don't think it really matters what we call these things. Like we're developing capabilities that, you know, didn't exist before. And I mean, even when we build a business, like AI underpins it, but we're selling like business outcomes and solutions to problems that exist. And I think that lens is actually really important because especially in hype cycles, you can spend a lot of like mental energy. Like we sort of see this sometimes in some businesses where like somebody will reach out and I'll be like, hey, well, you know, what prompted you to reach out? Like, well, I got told that like we want to do AI, and I was like, well, okay, like, I was like, I'm glad you're here. Like, it sounds like you've like come to the altar and you're like ready to like you know, pay homage to the thing. But like, let's go back to like, where's the pain? Like, what are the problems that we like, you know, want to solve? And then there are a lot of problems that were not possible to solve. There ends up being a lot of overlap, but I think it's important to like, you know, stay focused on like what moves the needle.
Yeah, it's a lot like that self-driving example, right? It's like, you know it's good when you forget that it's AI.
And you become bored.
Yeah, exactly. So you know it's good when you forget that Vooma is AI and you realize that it's doing this task for you that you just really need done.
Any bold predictions for AI in freight or logistics?
I think that we're going to see flywheels start to turn in businesses that figure out how to use AI. Because like, you know, you have your agent that's helping you with quoting. If you're running a split model, like there's a bunch of information on the carrier side, right? That takes various layers of human conversation maybe to make it back and forth. But when you start to introduce AI in like multiple parts of the business, that becomes part of sort of a hive mind. Where like that information is instantly accessible to the agent that's helping you quote, the agent that's like helping cover a load, things like that. And I think we'll start to see like compounding advantage to the businesses that are thinking about it, deploying it in like multiple places. Maybe not the boldest prediction, but
it makes sense though. I mean, but you have to, if you think about deploying it across the entire org versus just one area, you're going to get compounding returns based on that.
Bold prediction here is that within a couple of years, the shift of like humans communicating across freight is going to be like dramatically lower than it is today, and that there will be AI that represents all of the stakeholders in the ecosystem, both, you know, brokers, carriers, shippers, and that the AI is going to be handling a lot of that communication. And I think that it could actually happen faster.
Are we moving back towards dial-up? Given that all these voice agents are coming and making calls.
Like
sending information between companies. Seems to be happening more over voice.
I think we'll see like a protocol where it can start in voice. I think the moment you have like robots talking to robots, they can like they'll probably be able to like change into some other protocol that, you know, communicates differently. It doesn't necessarily at that point
it's all going to sound like a fax machine, maybe.
Could do, yeah.
Could be more efficient. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, you know, an API is just a way to like transact information, right? Yeah. And so is language, and so is emails. And so I think we start to move into a world where you can both get reliability and efficiency and ease of like communication. That's the thing that I think is this like big unlock for freight, is that part of the reason why it's so hard to move freight and it's so messy is like you have all of these different parties. They're on different systems. So it's very hard to like agree on standards. And so you send me EDI.
There are no standards.
There's no standard. Like you send me EDI and like I know that field goes here and you've just shoved half the information in this load notes field and like I need to like turn it into this. And like so a human is like processing that. And you couldn't really like, it would take a lot of work to get systems. And it's just, you see that pattern everywhere. And now you've got a language model that can kind of sit and understand and absorb and translate whatever message it's getting into the form that I need as a business. That's really powerful.
Where'd the name Vooma come from?
Great question.
So Vooma is, I'm from South Africa, and Vooma is like South African slang for like, the best comparison that I would give is like andale in like Spanish is similar to like Vooma, and so it's like speed, energy, let's go. And it was Jesse started telling the story a little bit. This was back when we were working on all kinds of crazy ideas, but we knew it was going to be like in logistics and relating to like automation and efficiency. And so we're like, that kind of covers whatever we end up doing. My family loves it. Like all the extended family in South Africa, they like big fans of the name of the company.
This was great. Super informative for me. Anything else you guys would want the audience to know about for Vooma? How do you get in touch? Who do you get in touch with?
Yeah, you can reach us, vooma.com. I'm also on
Not
LinkedIn.
a .ai.
We have .ai. It redirects to
Yeah.
both will work.
Okay. Cool.
We have a .ai, but this is part of the exactly. Like everything's going to be AI at some point. You know what I mean? The Vooma.com domain was owned by a crypto hedge fund trader in Dubai, so we had to acquire that.
But we got it.
But we got it. Yeah, yeah.
Actually, I will close with one final thought because I was going to ask, does it make sense for brokerages later to have a .ai domain, which is totally just forget that question. But it goes to another question that I have, which is, do you guys think that fully autonomous brokerages are like a dystopian future? Or is that a viable thing that may happen within the next decade? Is it possible today? Are there missing pieces to it? What do you think about that?
I don't know if that's what shippers want, if that makes sense. So I sort of like come back to, if you look at brokerages today that support enterprise shippers, one of the core metrics that they look at is the touchless load. And that is already happening today. There are like some percentage of loads that are like moving through systems and getting kind of like bid, booked, scheduled without anyone touching them. And I think that that ratio is going to like, that doesn't really exist in the SMB. There's not any there's no touchless load. But I think like within the next couple of years, it will be possible that there will be scenarios where you've just got AI that is able to like move through that entire workflow when stuff doesn't go wrong. But I think the role of logistics and the broker, it's a lot of problem solving. And it's like, when you look at anyone's day, they're usually not often like, I think what we'll see is that the repetitive work will not exist, but the like complex problem solving when stuff goes wrong is going to take a long time to be able to fully do with AI, because it's just like such a high level of like judgment required. And then we'll start to see AI that exists to support the resolution of exceptions. And I think the role of the broker will become like more and more strategic. It will be helping shippers think about their like network strategy, and like they're going to need to level up their offering and become more of a supply chain thought partner, and knowing how to like implement and orchestrate systems that are extremely efficient. So like part of that will be being very good at implementing AI to coordinate, and execute freight. But I don't think the North Star should necessarily be like, hey, a fully automated brokerage. I think the North Star should be like, what is the best like service offering that you can provide?
And if it just so happens to be fully autonomous, okay, that's
and that might be an important pillar of it, and it will be, because like efficiency and like cost matters a lot in transportation.
And well, yeah, those 2 of the 3 core pillars, and then the other one is service quality, right?
Yeah.
So cool.
This is awesome. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Thanks
so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Have fun.
It's fun.